Welcome to Rem and Sam. We are back,
We're back.
back again. We whole lot of different stuff going on, but mostly NBA playoffs. We got WNBA ongoing. Shout out, and the tough times for Caitlin Clark right now, but you
Are there
know
other WNBA
we
teams?
got NBA. I don't know. I don't know. Shout out Las Vegas Aces. Each player on the
Yeah.
team, you got it, I think announced today or yesterday. It's getting sponsored 100K from the government, city government. So shout out to
I
them.
saw that.
Probably, that's crazy.
That is crazy. And that's
That's
not like an
crazy. That's
NBA player
definitely a
getting
bump.
100K because 100K is like, a nice bonus for that. I mean, no
Yeah.
disrespect, but that's a big deal for a WNBA. I
Yeah.
get, a lot of them have probably endorsed, especially on the Aces too. You got Asia Wilson, Kelsey Plum, Jackie. Like you've got players with endorsement deals as well too that are making money off the courts and are, doing very well. I'm not saying the players are not doing well. I'm just saying, looking at the number, like, I mean, what was Caitlin Clark's rookie salary? Like 78K. She needs the city of
78,
Indiana
yeah.
the city of Indiana needs to give Caitlin Clark like 500K or just 100K is fine.
So
But
the minimum salary for last year was 62,000. And then the average is 116,000, with the most making about 242. Anyway, so they got their money pretty much doubled by the city government. That's
and
and
does the
that's
city
that's straight up stats you can look up. Like
and
we're
is
not even
that
making fun of
is that just a tax free 100K? Or is the city going to give them 100K and then
them.
tax them all 50% on the 100K? Is this just like the
Who
city?
knows?
I
Who
think it's
knows?
a
I do not
scheme.
have the details in front of me.
I think it's actually a scheme. I don't
Goodness,
even
that's
think it's a,
crazy.
a
It's all
gift.
PR. All PR. It's like when someone wins like the lottery $1 billion, and then it's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, actually like 400 million of this is going right back to the government. Like,
I mean, that's why Vegas
really?
is the team that's doing this of all the teams. Somebody in the Vegas city is
Mm,
working the
pretty
books funny,
crooked. Pretty
doing something
crooked.
weird. Yeah, something's
Oh
fishy.
man, we need to get Rem and Sam investigates on that. We need to get
Yeah,
a
we'll get
crack team on that.
we'll get a journalist on it this week. Get a full
That's
report.
funny.
I want to know if that's
Full
a hundred,
report for
if
everyone.
that's a tax free 100K. But I mean, it's still a nice bonus regardless. You'll take the money.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's almost doubling, what they're making for the whole year, and that's I guess not, maybe not giving out a one lump sum, but at least I don't know. At least guaranteed. So shout out to the champs, reigning champs, for getting that.
Back to back.
Um, back to back. Um, but I guess we can jump right into the champs who are trying to get the back to back over in the NBA. The Denver Nuggets on the ropes right now. Tied last night. Minnesota tied it up, getting was it the eighth largest playoff win victory, win margin. They won. All that to say,
Ever?
they won by 45 at home. Minnesota, right? Or what is that?
Eighth largest ever. I saw one that
Yeah.
was the largest defeat of a reigning champion in the playoffs ever. So I know there was a lot of
Mm.
different like metrics that it got in there, but yeah,
Yeah. Let's just say they got spanked badly
45.
on the road. And it's not the first time that this has happened. Well, it's the first time it's happened in Minnesota, but in those earlier games, that game 2 without Rudy, they did win by 26. This is a different level. And Rem, I mean, I was looking, I was kind of paying attention, but I knew the game was mostly over. I mean, 9 points in the fourth is rough. And I remember looking at points at times during this game, being like, are they going to be at like 60 something in a modern NBA game? I mean, this was the lowest point total all season long for any team. And I mean, does this mean anything? I mean, there's all these pictures floating out there. Oh, Jokic was standing the whole fourth quarter, like he's about to drop 50 and 30 at home. Like, where are you at right now? And who are you picking in this game 7?
Oh geez. Well, it did feel like things got a little out of hand in that game 6 where the 45 is a little dramatic, like 9 points in the fourth quarter. Obviously the Denver starters were basically out the entire fourth quarter and they're bench has been, one of the question marks in the team. Maybe 9 points in the fourth quarter means something, even though, they've been getting something with the Christian Braun minutes a little bit as well, too. But going back to game two, the thing that was really crazy was I think how well Karl Anthony Towns played in that game. And honestly, I thought the thing that really separated them in this game again was Cat. Edwards was really good in this game, but he was good in a different type of, where in game two and in a couple other of the games, he was just like really in his bag and really hitting a bunch of different shots. And you could see him in this game. He was like a little bit slow it down a little bit more. Really, he drew a lot of fouls in this game, really got to the line. And then you saw Cat again in game two, where it was a lot of the mismatches attacking Murray, shooting off the pick and pop off the three. And I thought in game two, or in this past game six here, he was good as well, but it was more attacking the rim. I thought they all countered the stuff that the Nuggets were throwing at him really well. And I thought Cat was a big reason in that little run in the first half where they pulled away. That was, again, the separating factor. And they didn't have Gobert in that game two, and they had him again. And again, I think some of the Gobert stuff, I don't know if we get into that, but I thought, again, Cat was really impressive in this game. And do you think, I thought in that game too, and like everybody in the moment in that game too was like really obviously complimentary of the Minnesota defense and how high level it was.
Yeah.
And this game replicated that in some way. But do you think the way the Nuggets shut down, like, do you think we overreacted to that game two at all about how good the Timberwolves played? Or do you think that the rest of the series is kind of bore out at that level? Like, I don't know. The fact that they've blown them out like twice like this, is like really crazy. And again, I get that there's like a snowball effect at the end of this game and the Nuggets are pulling their guys. Murray is cold. He's not feeling it, whatever. But I would let me add up the total points and see who's winning the series in total points, because I feel like it would be Minnesota.
Yeah. Probably. I mean, Minnesota, I mean, Denver was just cold in general, not just Jamal. 19% collectively as a team from three. And they really got beaten on the boards. The rebound battle definitely went the way of the Nuggets, almost grabbing 20 more, almost 20 there at 19, more rebounds than the Timberwolves, or more than the Nuggets. And so when you combine bad shooting with not being able to get the ball back and get, more chances to shoot, that's just going to be a recipe for losing. I mean, they Timberwolves hit more than twice as many threes as the Nuggets, and it's crazy how many games, especially during the regular season, are decided by who just hits more threes, who hits more shots, and later down the line. And it's pretty a simple way to look at basketball. But considering that they both hit the same number of shots in this game, 86. And the Nuggets were 30% and the Timberwolves were 46%. It's pretty clear that not only were the Nuggets cold, but you could definitely tell that they had been re-energized, or the Timberwolves have been re-energized. You could see their defense had a different kind of intensity. Edwards had talked about, they have been down on themselves the last couple of games. So there is that. And it's this thing that, shout out to Ron Russell, always mentions that when a team facing elimination is just going to play different more desperate than a team that isn't. And especially when the two teams are this closely talented, that difference is going to show up. And it did last night. And I mean, Jamal Murray, though, I mean, if there's one player you got to stick it on, it is probably Jamal Murray, having only 8 points in game two, went 3 of 18 from the field. And then last night, he only hit one more shot on as many attempts, 4 of 18, and had 10 points. So, for him to pretty much have the same game as game two, that can't happen for them. Game seven, like, there's just no way they're going to beat this team if the second fiddle can barely score double digits. So I don't, it's pretty clear the area that does need help, but I mean, the Timberwolves definitely were energized as well. They were definitely on one last night.
I was wrong. The Nuggets have outscored the Timberwolves over the course of the series, but it is kind of close. But Murray also early in this game hurt his elbow, And I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly what happened on the play, but he hurt his elbow. And I remember he cited it in the press conference as well, too, where he's like, and Jamal Murray's always down to blame something. So I'm sure he's going to point that out. But, he was like, hey, this is, it is true. It probably could have affected his shot that game. But I don't know. You're up 3-2 in a series, the defending champs. And I get you're looking at game 7, you have it at home. And I think we still trust this team going into it. But is your faith hurt a little bit? And I know, every time we try to like do some sort of like, oh, is your faith hurt on Jokic? Like he's going to probably drop 40 in game 7 and be just fine. But I don't know, the fact that it snowballed the way it did, like, is that just the way the Nuggets lose games? Or is there actually something about that is concerning? Or is that just, again, the level that the Timberwolves can play like we saw in the last couple of games? Like, is your trust hurt a little bit more going into the game 7 compared to if they had lost this like in a close victory?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, just to know that the Timberwolves can put this kind of a gap again on the Nuggets kind of shows that it's not a fluke because it's the second time it's happened. I mean, I think it does matter that they, had one of the largest playoff victories we've seen ever, top 10, and just to lay it on them. And yes, it was at home. But that game 2 was on the road. I mean, they have done it in Denver as well. So to be able to prove not only to everyone else, but to yourselves that, this is a team that you can considerably beat. I mean, honestly, for a younger team like this, which is kind of what the Nuggets or Thunder are kind of dealing with right now, is you kind of need that belief to make that extra step that we're not just a bunch of young guys. We belong here and we deserve to be here. And that's one of the things that makes champions different than everyone else. It's just the confidence and to know that you are supposed to win. And that just gives you a different level of calmness when playing. So that's why I think this win is huge for the Timberwolves to not only say, you have Edwards saying, oh, I'll see y'all in game 7, and then that confidence to walk in there and say it and actually do it and get through it. That gives that confidence in not only yourself as a team, but also in your leader as Edwards, helping him back him up. So I'm really excited to see this game 7. I mean, it's definitely going to be in my, an all-time game. I feel like, I mean, it's definitely probably going to be, I don't know if you can get a much better game here in the playoffs. I don't know, maybe a game 7 with Luka and whoever he faces in the West out of these two. But I think this is probably the best game so far, at least in the playoffs. And I can't wait to watch this game 7.
So are you more anticipated for this game 7 or going back to that game 5 where it was, or what was it, game 4 where it was 2-1 Minnesota and they had a chance to go up 3-1 and kind of put the series away? And it was kind of like, okay, is Anthony Edwards like really going to take over now? Because I feel like at this point, because at that point in the series, it was still like, okay, the takeover is like still in progress. And now it feels like Anthony Edwards has like actually ascended to that level. So going into this game 7, like, I don't feel like he is the underdog to me anyways. As he is in this game 7, as he was even in that kind of a clinching game 4, where they have a chance to go up 3-1. Because I still think, and that's just, even his growth over the first, the couple of games in the playoffs here. But at that point, to me, it was like still like, oh, I can't believe that this is actually happening with Edwards, where he's taking Jokic's spot. But now, if it's going into this game 7, if the Timberwolves win, like, I wouldn't be shocked. Like if the Nuggets just can't stop Anthony Edwards, and in the fourth quarter he decides, I'm going to turn it on and I'm going to hit every shot. I'm going to turn it on pause, but I'm going to hit every shot. And the thing is, like, when he gets into his shot making mode, like the 3-pointer really starts to go for him as well too. So if he just is like, I'm hitting 3-pointers, you can't stop me, switching everything, getting to the rim and can't stop. And if he pulls it out in the fourth quarter, like, again, I wouldn't be shocked. Whereas if they had put the Nuggets away in that game 4 and like put him away back then, I would actually have been surprised. But I just think Anthony Edwards is, where he was ascending even then, has now like fully claimed his spot in that level. So to me, it's like, to me, these teams are like the same now, whereas where I thought the Nuggets were still like that big bad team on the ropes earlier on in the series.
I like for me, first of all, Game 7 is just gonna rank, in my
And yeah,
opinion, the
for sure.
best out of any series every time. Like anytime we talk about any series,
I guess
but
I'm
I
just saying like
think
competitively.
for yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, I'm not on the edge of my seat as to whether Anthony Edwards will show up, but the rest of his teammates will. Cat show up for once? Will Jaden McDaniels be able to contribute? Will the whole team as a whole play together on the road in that adversity? Or is Jokic and company going to dominate? And so for me, I mean, I do expect Edwards to drop 40 in this game. I do expect him to play well. But like you mentioned, I think game 4 is a perfect example. He can put up 40 and they won't win. I mean, he still needs someone else on that team to step up with him. And that's what I'm interested to see someone else step up with him against the champs in Denver with the air. I mean, I know people, like might think it's not real. The athletes say it's legit. You ask all the athletes going to Denver, they say being up there,
The altitude,
you're
yeah.
playing under those conditions, you can feel it. So combining all that with the pressure of a game 7, that's where you see who's real and who's not. So that's what I want to see, because like the TNT crew says, you could do as much as you want, but you still need the others to step up.
And like you said in that game 4, Edwards obviously 44 points. Karl Anthony Towns 5 of 18 from the field, 13 points. So he's the guy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, do you trust Towns in this game to show
No,
up?
I don't, but you kind of have to. I mean, I think Mike Conley could definitely bring some good play. Um, it's
He'll
going
be
to be
steady.
interesting. And then, Rudy Gobert on Jokic, we're going to have to see what he does. I mean, he's done, I think. So I saw a stat, I think it was like 20-point losses. Only time Jokic has had that is these 2 games here in the series. And the only other one was when he faced the Jazz when Rudy Gobert was on there. So it might not be 20 points, but I think it's 25. Significant losses he's only had against Rudy. So, I mean, can Rudy make it 4? I know there's a whole lot of people mentioning, they have game 2 win without him. But, obviously, I feel like Gobert is obviously the best matchup. And we'll see. I mean, did he figure him out? Did he not? I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see. Jokic hasn't really been pushed around like this in a little bit, at least since they've started this run.
So what do you make then of all the people criticizing Gobert over the course of this playoffs? And I mean, it's even gone to the point where it's defensive liability. But I mean, that's kind of been a thing too with Gobert. It's hey, he wins the Defensive Player of the Year, and then in the playoffs, the he can be exposed in these certain type of ways. Like, have you seen that in this series? Like, do you think he's getting exposed by Jokic in this series?
Not really. I think Jokic is just better than him.
Yeah, like
More times
that's
than not. I mean, great offense is going to be great defense every day of the week because defense is reactionary. So, you know, and it's not only so much Gobert can do, but that doesn't mean Gobert is making it easy. And one thing people did point out is that the whole team is helping Gobert. And so when you have everyone engaged like that and you're reaching and you're pushing and doing all of it together, that's when it takes that defense to another level. And that's when you have a historic performance like last night.
And I know like people like Stephen A have like clarified what they're trying to say when they're criticizing Gobert, but it's like we just saw Jokic like torch Anthony Davis. And I know Anthony Davis doesn't have the defensive player of the years that Gobert has, but if we're all just being honest, like Davis is as good of a defender as Gobert, or at least as close to it.
I don't know.
I mean, it's close, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's close
I'm
enough.
probably like the only other person I'd have in the conversations like Giannis.
Giannis, maybe just in a Jokic matchup, Embiid.
Yeah.
Like one-on-one.
Maybe. But like, I don't know. Jokic usually has good games again.
Well, the thing is, we haven't really seen it like that much because Embiid always sits out every time they go to Denver. But like the couple of times they played in Philly, Embiid has done 40. He's dropped 40. He's done it.
I didn't say Jokic has good defense. Yeah, I don't know about that end. I
True,
can't
true,
defend him.
true.
Yeah. He's trying his best, you know.
Jokic has definitely put up his performances against Embiid as well. But I mean, you watch the shots that Jokic is getting. Like Jokic had a floater. I forget what game it was, but he had a floater that he like hit over Gobert, where Gobert like went up to just volleyball spike it, and it was just like absolutely perfect right over Gobert's fingertips, and he just missed it, dropped right in. It's like an impossible shot to hit. It's like, okay, there's just really nothing that Gobert can do. And I get that Jokic can push him around a little bit. Like Cat has been a little bit more successful because I think Cat's a little bit sturdier. But
Yeah.
I think Jokic is doing, or Gobert is doing a good job for the most part on Jokic. So I don't know if he's necessarily a defensive liability. And I think the league is a little bit different now compared to where it was even when he was back on the Jazz, because the teams that he was getting beat by on the Jazz were like those Harden Rockets teams, and they were playing like the Warriors as well too. Like they got eliminated in 2017 by the Kevin Durant, Steph Curry Warriors, but like those Rockets teams where it's the pace and space and the one-on-one, the pick and roll stuff. I feel like with the like since this Denver emergence, like the dunker spot position has become like a real thing in the NBA. And because of that, a guy like Gobert has a guy he can switch on to now for a defensive matchup purpose, like that's around the rim. So again, if you have Cat guarding Jokic like they've done a couple of times, you know, Gobert's on Gordon, and then Gobert's able to be around the rim. Now, Gordon has exposed that a little bit, but in that one game, it was just like Gordon just hit every shot. And again, Gobert played good defense on Gordon, and Gordon just hit a ton of crazy shots in that game. There's really nothing you can do. So I honestly feel like if anything, like would you want a little bit more offensively from Gobert? Like that would be the thing, right? Because again, if Davis is not going to stop him, Gobert's not, like you're not going to stop him on defense. So it's like maybe just something to like cancel him out a little bit. But like defensively, Gobert is doing all he can.
I mean, they have a lot of options offensively. I mean, you have Anthony Edwards 1, and you have Cat 2, and then as that 3, you know, I mean, you obviously don't want Gobert creating anything. Now, you definitely want him to be cleaning up, you know, whatever trash is up there, you know, getting those rebounds and putbacks and really focusing his energy there. But if I'm Finch, I want Gobert just locked in on trying to beat Jokic. Like I want, like all I want him to think about all day is just beat Jokic. Do everything you can, just like locked in and have his 100% of his energy there. Because if he can slow down Jokic even 10%, that's a win for the Timberwolves. And so when they have like other people such as Jaden McDaniels, they have Conley, they have Cat, they have even Naz Reid. I mean, Naz Reid has really been great offensively for this team, you know, solid defender. So, I mean, considering that literally all his teammates can be options on offense, I'm not saying you know, pretty much play, you know, it doesn't pretty much, you know, cherries off of them and, you know, sits on the bench. But I think, you know, beyond the usual big man stuff of getting those rebounds, of boxing out Jokic, and that's one of the things I think would be huge for him is making sure you're ready to box out Jokic, because those outlet passes from those rebounds are huge. Those are killers. They love those peel outs. So, I mean, if I just say Gobert, stick to Jokic like glue and really, really stop him. And, you know, we have other people who can score, and that's definitely not his game. I mean, Gobert, you know, around the mid-range, around the three-point, you know, obviously not his game, definitely not a creator. So, and they have other options to set screens. So,
and I'm not like
that's probably go with
saying that like, you know, you actually want Gobert to be doing more offensively. I'm just saying like you can't criticize. I don't think you can necessarily criticize his defense too much in this series, because honestly, like I'm saying, like the Jokic shots that he's making are just incredibly tough shots, like impossible shots. And that is Gobert making his life difficult. And I think, you know, again, going back to that game 4 and connecting it to this game 7 a little bit, like the thing that we kind of knew going into that game 4 a little bit, and we knew like if this series is going to go 7, we're going to get a longer series. Like there's just greatness is going to have to happen in this series, where it was clear like, okay, the defense that the Timberwolves can throw at Jokic and can throw the defense that they can throw at Murray, for one, they can almost take him out in certain games. So that means Jokic is going to have to do everything on offense, and then they actually have the defense to throw at Jokic. So Jokic has to combat that. But then it's like, hey, Anthony Edwards is on the other side, like ready to go. If we beat the Nuggets this year, like we take the belt, and now the Nuggets were probably the biggest obstacle to winning the title. Now we have a clear shot to actually winning the title, and Anthony Edwards has a chance to become something special. So again, that's why I feel like this series is just like a major, major series for Jokic, because this is actually like the best. Like the defense and all, it's all been incredible. Like the Timberwolves are playing as well as they can,
Yeah.
and Jokic is just in the games that they've won has just decided there's nothing that the other team can do to stop me. So that's kind of the thing that's we're kind of in that territory where now I'm still not down on the Nuggets as a team, that Murray can play well and Porter can play well, especially now, like you're saying, that they're at home in Denver. It's a major advantage. But I do kind of think I'm a little bit leaning toward Timberwolves are the better team, and it's just the greatness of Jokic that's going to power the Nuggets through at the end of the day if they're going to win Game 7.
Yeah, and that's why for me, I'm most excited for Game 7, because it's definitely going to be a legacy game. I mean,
Yeah.
if Anthony Edwards can beat the Nuggets at home, and this was an up and down series, but I mean, I don't think anyone had the Timberwolves, I mean, I don't think too many people, the majority of people didn't have the Timberwolves honestly beating the Nuggets, but to beat them in this fashion, to have several 40-point games, that's huge. And, it kind of goes to, vindicate all the stuff we were talking about at the end of the last playoffs, where like the Timberwolves were kind of good against the Nuggets. Like they were sneaky, like there was something there. And so to see them take this next step, I mean, it'd be insane. But at the same time, on the other end, for Jokic to be able to go through this really good defensive team, to weather this storm. And yeah, they stumbled last, against the Timberwolves. But I think for me, if Jokic can squeak past this and continue to get a ring, I mean, I think this is where I could understand, people saying he's in like the top 15 all time, top 20, just because of the run he's on. But if Anthony Edwards knocks him off, then he kind of falls down the list. I mean, it seems like it's kind of willy-nilly, but I mean, it's the playoffs. It's where it matters. And this is definitely a series that he shouldn't have lost those first two at home. And yes, Anthony Edwards lost the other two, but they were the reigning champs. Jokic is considered the best player in the world, and if you're the best player in the world with pretty much the same team, Christian Braun has really well filled that spot for Bruce Brown. Maybe not as much 3-point shooting, but definitely in terms of minutes
playmaking.
and and even Peyton Watson, even if he's injured, that can't be that much of an injury. So they have practically the same team against someone who is on the up climb. And I mean, I'm very excited to see this next game, not just for the series win and this year in terms of who's winning the championship, but in terms of Jokic and Anthony Edwards' legacy, especially with Jokic winning his third MVP in 4 years.
Well, and that's a great point too, pointing out the 40, like the blowouts in the series, because if they do win the Game 7, even if it's a close game, like if they win the series, like just historically, you're going to look back at this series and go look at the games and be like, man, the Timberwolves kind of took it to the Nuggets a little bit. Like, and again, we thought the Nuggets were kind of this team. Like, to be honest, like a lot of the stuff we were talking about with Jokic throughout the season was kind of like this, like penciled in second title a little bit, that they were going to win this season and just kind of be like, hey, he's kind of like already in this tier of greatness. And if the Timberwolves, again, just cut that off in the semifinals, like not even in the conference championship yet, not even in the Final Four, if they cut it off in the semifinals and then looking back, you're like, man, they beat them by 45 in one game. And there was a game where the Nuggets scored 70 points. And then another game where they scored 80 and they lost both the games at home to start. I mean, like the Nuggets actually kind of got dominated a little bit. And I think I don't know what would, it's not going to like really, like Jokic would still be able to bounce back from that kind of a loss, I think. Because again, Jokic has played so well, but the Nuggets team, like Murray, Porter, Gordon, like what would it do to your stock of the Nuggets supporting cast? Michael Malone, like those guys, if they lost this Game 7 to the Timberwolves.
Well, I think it'd be, I mean, we definitely are going to have to see why they lost, in terms of, Did Jamal Murray fall apart again? Is this why Jamal Murray has never been to an All-Star game? And, we don't consider him like a serious, like, top 30 player, top 20 player, up there. But yeah, I mean, Jokic is not going anywhere. I don't think there's going to be major changes in the offseason, and I wouldn't expect any. Um, but it's going to be interesting to see how they lose if they lose, because it's just. I mean, I really didn't think the Timberwolves would actually pull this off. Like this is like for them to be going to a game 7 is
Yeah.
crazy. But I think for if Anthony Edwards wins, he's gonna have to take it to another level. And it's definitely I don't know. He might have to drop 50, but it's definitely gonna have to be
I was
40
gonna
if
say
he wants to
50.
win.
I was gonna say 50.
And
He might have to get to 50.
yeah, I think he might have to do 50. It's probably gonna go into overtime. So and like you mentioned, for him to have 3 40-point or more games, and those 2 huge wins, I mean, I think it can be, you looking back in history, you can definitely point to them being clearly the best team out of the two, and probably out of the best of the Western Conference. This definitely feels like the best semifinals since that Warriors Rockets one. I think that was 2017.
Yeah.
And I think and it's definitely one of those that I think when people go back and look, they're like, okay, like this was the real conference finals, because I mean, I think both of us agree like they're beating whoever is in the other series. So I yeah, I definitely it's yeah, it's gonna be huge legacy wise for either team. I mean, for Jokic to be able to go through this, or for Anthony Edwards to step up another level. And I mean, it's going to be a crazy amount of blowback if, if Jokic loses, because there's a lot of people saying, he shouldn't have even gotten this third MVP.
Well, and the reason we're throwing out the 50-point number so high for Anthony Edwards is because like he's gonna have to keep pace with Jokic. So even if Jokic is at like 38, like Jokic is gonna have 13 assists. So if he gets into that 13 assists, 10 assists type of range, then Anthony Edwards is gonna have to put up the, but he's not gonna play make like Jokic. So he's gonna have to put up the points to be able to keep pace with the points produced that Jokic is gonna be able to put up.
So who are you picking? You get
Well, how do you think this is gonna go? Because all the games I feel like have been, well, here, let me go back to the box scores and pull up the games, because again, we've had those blowouts, but the Nuggets beat them by 27 and beat them by 15 as well too. So the Nuggets have beat them handily as well. But I
yeah.
also think Edwards is like 50 is actually like super gettable for Edwards in this game, because again, they haven't really
Yeah.
been able to stop him. He got 43 in that game 1 when Minnesota won by 7, and then he got 44 when they lost by 8. So he's gotten 40 plus in both the games that were close. And in both of Minnesota's blowouts, he had 27 when they won by 26. So, he was foot off the pedal a little bit halfway through that game after they had put it away. And then he had 27 in this past game when, again, they basically didn't play the fourth quarter and they won by 45. They had dominated basically the entire game. So, again, I don't think they're going to be able to stop Edwards. I think life is going to be difficult for Jokic. He's definitely going to he's definitely going to produce. Like, that's not going to, we're not questioning
Yeah.
that. But I do think it's going to be difficult for him. Can they force him to miss a couple of threes? Can they force Murray to hit a couple of threes? Murray hit a couple of shots over Gobert in the games as well too. Like Gobert, Davis. Oh, like you said, good offense beats better defense. Like Murray has just hit some incredible shots
Mm-hmm.
in this playoff run as well too. But
He's missed a lot.
he has. I don't want to pick against Jokic, but I feel like the Timberwolves are the better team.
He's doing it. He's doing it.
I didn't make a pick.
I don't. The thing is I don't even know if there is a home advantage with those 2 losses in the beginning of the series. So I
That
might
is
have
a
to
good
go with
point.
Minnesota on this one. Yeah, it hurts. It hurts to it hurts to pick against, like you mentioned to pick against to pick against Minnesota or against Denver, but I think we got to do it just because they just I you just can't you can't have like huge losses like that. Like it's just yeah, those are really just the way that Denver just felt helpless. Like you just don't know.
Yeah. Have you
You
ever
just
have
felt like there's just nothing they could do.
That's a great point because even in those Denver blowouts, like, did you feel like Minnesota was helpless in those games?
Exactly. No, it felt like they could do a little bit.
It felt like, there was definitely, they weren't executing properly. Like, they were definitely, Edwards is a young guy. Their stuff was sloppy. Like, you definitely felt that. But like you're saying, there has been times in the series where the Nuggets have actually been like overwhelmed by the Timberwolves defense. And
Exactly.
I do think that is, again, I think maybe we have to leave Jokic out of that because I do think that game 2 itself was a little bit fluky with how much they were able to
Mm,
contain Jokic. Because again, you go back and watch that game, and Jokic is still like Jokic. He's still doing all the right things. It's just the Timberwolves or the Nuggets teammates are missing the shots. Jokic is missing the shots. Like just nothing was going in that time. But still,
yeah,
even against the doubles and all that stuff, like he was still. You were like, okay, Jokic is still he's still making the right plays here. But
exactly.
again, like Murray and the other guys have felt overwhelmed. Like you're saying, they're having to close with Porter over Braun, which this is now back-to-back playoffs where playoff runs where Porter has been on the bench in big moments, like as we get deeper in these
Mm,
runs. Because remember, he was same thing last year,
good
like you're
point.
saying, when they put in Bruce Brown. So I know Christian Braun has played the defense has been good for the most part on Edwards, but like you're saying, he doesn't give you that little bit of offensive spark that Brown gives you, where Brown can almost be like a pseudo point guard a little bit. And it's not like he would ever get a bucket, but it did seem like he had good chemistry with the way he worked off of Jokic, where Jokic was able to find, like he had that Aaron Gordon thing going with Jokic, where Braun has that a little bit cutting out of the corner, but I don't think to the degree that Bruce Brown has it. So, do you think this is a close one? Do you think is Minnesota going to roll him over the way they've done it the last couple?
No, I don't think they're gonna roll them over,
Because if it's
but
close, I
I
kind of want to pick the
do
Nuggets then.
think, yeah, I do think, yeah, if it is close, I do want to pick the Nuggets as well. But I think the Timberwolves will pull away in the fourth, though. I do think they could pull away in the second half of the game. Just turning on the screws, and I just, yeah, I don't think. I mean, I think the first quarter it's going to be close. It's going to be nerves, But once the Timberwolves get into it, if unless Cat completely like is horrible, and
Yeah.
he's missing, and what's his face, and Anthony Edwards is cold. Like I really think they're going to be able to keep it close, and because of that, and if they're able to keep it close, then I think the Timberwolves can really turn it on. And we're gonna have to see. I mean, Jamal Murray, the whole thing was, oh, it's fine. It's fine if he keeps missing because in the fourth quarter, he's like scores the most. He could do all this in the fourth quarter. Like, watch out for him in the second half. And the last couple of times they've lost, he hasn't shown up. He's shown in this playoff series, the anti-clutch gene. He has not shown up sometimes. So I mean, I don't think you can just trust him to turn it on in the second half, but we've seen from the Timberwolves that they can hit a level that Denver can't reach, and I'm a bet on
Mm.
that. So I'll go with definitely with the Timberwolves. I think it'll be close. There'll be moments where like, oh, we're so dumb. We should have gone with the Nuggets, but
Of
um,
course. I mean, they have
you know,
Jokic. He's
yeah,
gonna make us feel
exactly.
stupid. But as like you're saying, as much as this is the Anthony Edwards game, like can Anthony Edwards take over the league? Like this is gonna be the Carl Anthony Towns game as well, too. Like he absolutely has to
Yeah,
play well in this game. And I thought he played well in the last game. I thought he was patient. There was a couple of times where he threw the lob to Gobert where you're like, okay, he's playmaking now where he was used to be settling for the shot. And again, he's been shooting well in the playoffs. So, and it's been on the mismatch. It necessarily hasn't been the bad thing, but it's just been a different dynamic to his game. But he needs to continue that. He needs to have consistency. That's going to be the thing that puts him on that level as a number 2, because I think I might have said this last week, but I don't think he's not being viewed as like that actual number 2 yet. Whereas we're like, okay, Anthony Edwards is ascending into that number 1. We're not like, oh, Carl Anthony Towns
yeah,
is ascending as the sidekick to Anthony Edwards in this ascending team. And I think, if he has a good performance in this game, and I think he's had a really solid series, I think it could be very favorable for how people view him as a playoff player. But I don't know if I can actually pick Minnesota to win this game, though. In Denver, Jokic, like you said, he's going to be a top 10 player of all time if he wins this game. And I'm going to pick against him.
No, I don't know about top 10, but definitely like top 15, top 20 is what I've been hearing.
He's better than Magic, is
know
what you're
top
saying,
10.
if he wins this game?
No, no, I'm not saying that. I don't know. People have like Magic top 5. I don't know, but
Yeah, he's got a little ways to go.
He needs a couple more, but definitely winning those MVPs, 3 MVPs is huge, and you just want him to win a championship or two extra to back it up. So
yeah,
well, we'll see, but that's not the only series ongoing right now. I guess we can quickly cover the Celtics. They handle business against the Cavs, and that didn't really matter because the Cavs didn't have a lot of players. But the only active player, so a couple stats just because it's huge. The only active player who has more Eastern Conference Finals appearances than LeBron is Jaylen Brown. And he's definitely, because he was there 1 year earlier. He was on a little bit earlier. And then since 1975, the Knicks have had 4 Eastern Conference Finals appearances. Might make it 5 this time. And Tatum has 5. And then I think Jaylen Brown has 6. So, for you, what does this mean? Like, for these, how are you going to remember this era? Because I think for a lot of people, only making it to the finals once is pretty disappointing, especially in 6 trips. One of them without Tatum. And to only make it 1 out of 6 is crazy. But then to be one of the top 2 teams in the conference for most of the time that you're in the league is, I think, something that can't be overlooked. So, like, when you look at this era, what are the things that you'll remember? And, there is a high chance they'll make it. I mean, this is their 6th trip, so there is a high chance they'll make it 2 out of 6 times. But that's only a third of the times they made it. They had a 1 in 3 chance of making it onward to the final. So, I mean, would you consider this a fail? Like if someone told you, your team, the Spurs, are making it to the conference finals the next 6 of 8 years, and they're going to only make it to the finals twice and may not win a ring. Like, would you sign up for that? Would you decline it, with or without Wemby?
I think that, I was going to say Wemby's an important factor there because it's a little different. I think, admittedly, the ceiling is a little bit higher with Wemby than it is with a lot of guys. And the timeline with Wemby, even though it might not end up being different, I think you have to think of it as a little sped up because of historically the position and the health of that position. I think you have to work on a little bit more of a clock than you would have to with a guy like Tatum, where you're just like, hey, maybe we can get 15 years out of this guy. Where, like you're saying, I think Wemby, it's like, hey, if we're looking at a 10-year window, I think anything after that is going to be like, hey, we're at that, absolutely will 100% take that. I'm not saying that 10 years is unreasonable, but this has been something I have been thinking about with this Tatum run, because I think the 2 players that had like the biggest volatility of any of the young guys, just how we perceive them in the league going into the playoffs, was Luka in the West and Tatum in the East. Because, we saw Anthony Edwards in the playoffs last year, and, he played well. Like, I think we were impressed with what we saw, obviously. And like you're saying, there was notes of what had happened. There was notes of this being planted, seeds of this being planted in that playoff series last year. But this is like the first time Edwards has been in the playoffs with expectations. And this is the first time that Shea has been in the playoffs with real expectations. And this is like the time that, like, for Brunson, like the first time that he's actually been in the Halliburton, like the changing of the guard is happening because this is like the first time we're actually seeing the guys play on this level. But that is not the case for Luka and Tatum. But in terms of age, they are on these guys' level. They've just been able to be competitive enough in these early years where they've been having the success of guys in their prime. They've just been doing it at the beginning of their career. But if you look at NBA history, again, it is like, it's not like every guy ever, even every great player ever has like a 8, 9, 10 year window of just finals runs and conference finals runs and pure domination and being at the top of the league. Like, the league kind of goes in 4, 5 year cycles. And, like, I'm not saying that guys drop out of the face of the league after 4 or 5 years, but the top end talent, you'll still be in the mix for the all NBA, but there is like a 4 or 5 year window where the top end talent switches out a little bit. And the truly, truly great ones are the ones that are able to kind of transcend the time. You get Jordan is able to go over a little couple mini periods there in the 90s. You get LeBron, obviously, the way his career spans, Kareem, the way his career spans. Like, the truly great ones are able to maintain that a little bit. But, like, again, I get Tatum is age wise, like, he's perfectly fine. Like, there is, like, he's entering his prime now. Like, these are in theory, his best years are ahead of him. But are you worried that, like, there is like just like a competitive window that he, like, do you think he can keep this up and just be like the main guy on a team that makes these deep playoffs runs for like 10 years? And then, I guess maybe not win the finals, but I'm saying, I feel like just you look at it and these guys, it's like you get like a little 4 or 5 year period, and it feels like the Celtics have definitely had that. And I get they've added pieces. This is a little bit of a newer version of the team, but are you worried that Tatum has missed like some kind of, like, are these guys missing is their window closing a little bit, even though they are, younger guys?
I mean, I don't know if their window's closing, but I do know that patience is running thin. I think that's why
That's a
Porzingis
better way
was
to put it.
brought in. I think yeah, I think there's definitely some
Yeah.
exasperation about whether they wanted to sign Jaylen Brown to that long contract. And I think, this is one of those years that they need to be competitive in they need to be competitive in the finals, not just getting past the conference finals, but once they get to the finals, I mean, they can't get swept or handled like they did with the Warriors last time. Like, it's there. This is the most talented team Jason Tatum has had around him ever, and Jaylen Brown too. In this round, I mean, even with Porzingis looking to be missed part of the first part of the series, I mean,
The
people,
conference finals?
he made. Yeah, I think they
Mm,
mentioned. Let me see here. I saw a report. Yeah, he's likely out for the start of the finals, conference finals.
mm.
Um,
So maybe the Porzingis thing
one
is a
and
little more
two.
serious.
Yeah,
Maybe he might not come back.
soul strain. I don't know. I mean, I think they're taking their time just because they don't want to rush him,
Then they haven't
And
needed
if
him.
they're playing they're gonna be playing either shorthanded Knicks or the Pacers, So I don't think they're not really worried, I think, in terms of, having I think he could play if he needed to, but they might as well. They need him really for the finals. So I think that's why they're taking it slow. But for this team, I mean, I think even having Drew Holiday is still an improvement over, a
Of
player like
course.
Marcus Smart. Not having Grant Williams is a little bit of a win. So I think
Mm.
there's just this is definitely a better team than last year. And that was a team that came back from a 3-0 deficit and almost beat the Heat. So, it's still a very talented team. I think, it's the most talented team, and they have to put up this year. They kind of have to get it together and at least be close to winning a ring. At least show us something. But, this is the reason why Tatum isn't put with the best players in the league, because no matter how big that gap was for his team versus all the rest of the teams in the East, it's just because of, when in these clutch moments, he doesn't show up, and it's what hurts the most.
They haven't
As a fan of him, is seeing him not take that final step.
they haven't actually announced all NBA teams yet, have they? Is that official?
I don't think so.
Did you have him as a first team all NBA guy?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And I get it too because of the record. Like they won 60 plus games, great regular season
Yeah.
team. You got to give them their respects in some regard. But I do feel pretty good about my
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards and Jalen Brunson cases. But I do feel like if like that is on it, that has kind of been Tatum's spot a little bit in first time All NBAs. Like, and I know that it's changed a little bit
Yeah.
too with the positions. Like there doesn't have to be a front court guy, but he had kind of ascended to if the Celtics are going to be a regular season powerhouse, he's going to be a first team All NBA guy. And I feel like if there is like shortcoming this year in the playoffs, then like you're saying, there is going to be a little bit of a standard drop with Tatum, where even as he enters his prime, like this younger generation behind him, as we're seeing all these guys, and that is again, it's just a byproduct a little bit too of the fact that we're seeing all these guys for the first time do this. And Tatum actually has a
Yeah.
history of, the fact that he's lost in the conference finals, like, is actually kind of going against him a little bit. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like you're saying they have to be competitive in the finals. Like realistically, I kind of think they have to win the finals.
Mm.
Otherwise, it's kind of going to be like,
I mean,
oh
I don't
man,
know.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
think they're beating. I don't think they're beating the Nuggets or the Timberwolves, to be honest. But yeah.
And I wouldn't be like super confident about them against the Knicks. I'm going to be curious to see what those odds
What?
are. And I get the Knicks. I get they're super banged up.
What?
They're super banged up at this point. I get it. But Brunson is the best player in
Yeah.
that
No
series.
OG.
Brunson's the best player in the series.
Is he when he has Drew Holiday draped all over him? I
I
mean, there
think
aren't
so.
many guard defenders like Drew.
And that is true. That's interesting too, because Derek White's there, and it's not like Nemhard where he can just take those guys into the post and be physical. And there's different ways he can abuse the matchup there. But I think Brunson's just playing. He's just on a heater right now. I don't know if they're able to stop him.
Yeah.
And I think again, those Villanova guys are in place. I think there's going to be that the good energy is still there. So if you're facing that good Knicks energy and it's close games, where the Knicks, I don't know what the Celtics have done to prove that they're getting close games. I guess they've been a dominant team for the last 5 years in the playoffs, but other than that, I mean, again, I just really trust what Brunson's doing this season. And
The Knicks.
if he has to go shot for shot with Tatum in the fourth quarter, I might put my money on Brunson.
Yeah, but you also one team has Jaylen Brown, has an actual bench, actually rests their players, and the other one's been playing like 40 minutes every single game in the series. I mean, they're literally playing a game 6 tonight, right? And it could be pushed to a game 7. Let's see what the score is. And so for them to keep playing all these nights, yeah, the Pacers are up right now. So it's a very likelihood it's game 7 back in MSG, but for them to keep playing these kind of minutes every single night, it's got to take a wear and tear. And now you got to face easily the best team so far and best defender so far in what's his face?
Holiday, Derek White.
Holiday. Yeah. So, and someone who I thought you, I mean, it's your boy too, man. I just
Oh,
say so,
I love Holiday.
So yeah, I don't know what yeah, I don't know how the Knicks would beat them. And
They'll test them. They'll test them.
I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout every game. Yeah, and I'm not saying it'll be even a sweep, but
it'll be a moral victory
yeah,
for the
I
Knicks.
definitely,
It'll be the type of series where the Celtics feel defeated afterwards. And they're just all kind of bummed out about how they won the series. It kind of felt that way with this Cavs series too. And I know that they handled them pretty well in most of the games they played. And for the most part, like they're undefeated in the playoffs, except for that one game against the Cavs. And then that one game where the Heat just had the best shooting performance of their entire franchise history in the playoffs. So if you take the historic shooting night out against the Heat, they've really only beaten once in the playoffs. Like, again, they are checking the boxes here, but they haven't really, I don't know. Do you feel like you gotta at least do it for like you're saying, prove to yourself and just like put together a good game from start to finish, right?
Yeah.
Like, even if you can beat these teams in the way they're beating them, I feel like you have to just play a clean game or a couple of clean games at some point in the playoffs and just be in a good rhythm heading against competitive teams.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Celtics have had a stumble in each of these series, but then after they've cleaned it up pretty well. Obviously their last series, they lost. The other team lost a good chunk of their players. In Donovan Mitchell, who was already quit on that team emotionally, apparently. The article really, or the Athletic really tore into the dysfunction that was going on with that team. So who knows?
But now Windhorst is
do
saying there's going to
think,
be an extension.
yeah, I don't know, but I do think, well, they kind of have to because they gave up all those pieces for him. So, you never want to lose the asset for nothing. So at least they could trade inside, China trade or something.
Garland might be
But
getting
uh,
feisty.
yeah, him too. So who
There's
knows
some
what's going on with
reports.
that team? But I don't think I'm really scared of a team that has a chance to go to 7 with the Pacers. And the Pacers are a good team. But there's a reason the Celtics were up so many games in the East, and I'm not really worried about them losing a real series, but we'll see.
So this is their wins for the playoffs so far. They beat the Heat by 20, 20, 14, 34, and then they beat the Cavs by 25, 13, 7, and 15. So they
Yeah.
actually have been pretty, they have cleaned up these
Yeah.
teams.
No worries. Zero worries. Let's see. What was the a worried teams that you should be worried about? You're OKC. Did I call it or did I call it? Now I will take back one of my takes. Yes, OKC is not one of the worst #1 seeds in a while. Okay, I get it. All right, they just had a tough conference. I do think they are a little shaky, but I did warn that they could. That I think the Mavs are gonna beat them. And right now the Mavs are up on them 3-2. They're gonna play Game 6 at home in Dallas, where they could get sent home. Rem, are you worried at all about, on the scale of 1 to 10? How worried are you for OKC?
I maybe like a 7.
Hmm.
Is
Okay,
that?
that's pretty high.
I mean, they are down 3-2, and they are going against Luka Doncic. So, and they are playing
At
on
home.
the they're on the road.
Doncic's at home.
Yeah, the Thunder
Yeah.
are on the road for Game 6. So, it is there are causes for concern, but I still feel like that again, going, like we've been talking about the blowouts and all these other series, this series outside of Game 1 where the Thunder won by 22, it's been a 9-point game, 4-point game, 4-point game, and then this last game was a 12-point game. But the Thunder were hanging around a little bit in there. And it's not like they've really stopped Shea. It's just Jalen Williams hasn't played well. And I think this series has kind of showed the importance of Chet offensively for this team, because against the Pelicans, he was able to take advantage of some of the Valanciunas minutes and the mismatches there, step out for 3, where Gafford is able to, and you got Lively are able to contain him on the perimeter a little bit better than some of the bigs in New Orleans were, and are able to
Yeah.
contain him off the dribble as well, too. So if the Thunder are able to win this series let's just say they're facing the Nuggets in the next round, then you got like, okay, Chet on it. Just I get defensively against Jokic, he's going to be a liability. But again, it's like, okay, offensively, if Chet's not producing, then this team is going to be at a step down, and that's what we're seeing in this series as well too. So I trust Shea in this next couple of games. He's going to perform well. He's been 30 plus games the last 4. In that Game 1 too, he was 29, 9-9. So if he has one more of each, he's got a 30-point triple double, and everybody's raving about it on the graphic, but just a little bit short. Doesn't quite get it, but
Yeah, I'm not here saying that what's his face is washed. That SGA is washed. But like you mentioned, Chet has had a tough series, and this is what happens. I mean, it's technically his rookie season. And to rely
yeah,
on that versus playoff vets like Doncic, who
like
has taken
Gafford.
over a series, Gafford, who has, who is, I don't, not maybe not a playoff
Yeah, I don't think so.
vet, but He definitely knows his role. And then I was more talking about Doncic. We've seen what he does or I meant Kyrie, winning that championship. And, just a team that really won the trade deadline by a landslide. PJ Washington is taking that next step. They just have all these players that perfectly fit this team. And they don't even have Maxi Kleber. I think he's hurt. But Isaiah Likely, talk about knowing your role. He's been playing great.
Derek Lively.
Derek Jones Jr. Yeah, Derek Lively, Derek Jones Jr. Double Derek trouble. I don't know what's going on with the Derricks down in Dallas. Say that 5 times fast, but I really have loved what I've seen from Derek Jones. I mean, just to I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not gonna lie. When he was with other teams, I felt like he was playing outside it perfectly. Doncic would likely as also, being lob threats, playing defense, just knowing their roles and playing it. I've loved what they've seen. And Jones has been hitting a couple threes. He's been getting a little frisky from beyond the line. So you have all that combined with, like you mentioned, OKC not playing as well. It's just what happens when the playoffs. They're younger players. They're not used to this kind of pressure. And they're playing a team that, mind you, they're only up one game, but it is a more veteran team. And they cannot beat this team with Chet having 14 and 5, 14 and 7, 14 and 7. They just need more scoring against, a really good score on this other team and Doncic. And one of the things that, works during the regular season is kind of how SGA plays. But when you kind of know what he's going to do, kind of know his moves, like he doesn't necessarily have super elite speed, but he is very smart in terms of, getting to the spots that he wants. But, it is easier to pressure him when you play him night after night, knowing what he does. And I think that's why in the beginning, the Mavs are trying to figure out the kind of get shocked, the OKC is able to get a couple wins in there. But I think the Mavs are now kind of getting used to this team. They kind of know what's going on. They know who's where. And just the lack of scoring depth on this team. They have a lot of players who can play, but having that elite scoring in players, this is where it's better to have the ultra superstars and players who know their roles than having a really good bunch of decent players, because those decent players, they may not show up at times, and playing outside of their roles. Who knows what's going to happen? So I think the Mavs are definitely built for the playoffs. They're a playoff team. You can definitely see, having that length, having people who can cover. I think Jones had it was 0 of 9 when he was the primary defender on any Thunder player. So I mean, he's just playing out of his mind right now. He's shutting down everyone. So shout out to him. Shout out to PJ Washington. Shout out to Gafford. We know he's super efficient at scoring, and that's what the Mavs need. That's what they got. And say it gets close and someone has to carry it on their back. I'm sorry, I'm picking Doncic over SGA any day of the week. I know people had SGA as MVP and stuff. I had questions about
Stephen A.
OKC, and those questions are being put under a microscope even more in this game. And I mean, I'm just saying, those Clipper series, I'm just saying, Doncic's got the resume.
And Doncic, this last game, it was like Doncic is like the number one player in the league where you almost know the shot is going in before he releases the ball. You get just the way just his body language is able to telegraph everything. And you can kind of, again, that goes almost for early, just like throughout the game, where if it's early in the game, you kind of know, okay, this is going to be the Doncic cold game. This is going to be the Doncic hot game. And I get that he is playing hurt in this series. So that can't be underestimated as well.
Yeah, no, he's banged up all over.
Yeah. So that's definitely an issue. But is there a little bit of Doncic is he just a little bit too streaky in the playoffs?
I think it's low-key a good thing. I think it's a good thing that he's a little bit banged up, because you can definitely see him not being as aggressive. And I think it's giving the other players more confidence because they're actually getting the ball. You can see him pass off the ball sooner. And I think it's what's breaking this team from heliocentric to being a real playoff team, and everyone's going. And now, mind you, he's still putting up stats. He's still Luka Doncic. He's still going to go out there and ball. But I think by sharing the load with other teams. And you see, that's what the great players, MJ, LeBron, that's the next step. And really getting those rings, what they understood is you can go and do it. No one's saying you can't go up and put 40, 50 every night. I mean, we can look at the box score, but you need to more 20s and 30s and allowing everyone else to score, because when they help you, when you allow them to score, they're more invested. They're going to make those shots. It allows to be a more dangerous team, and then they're going to try on the defensive end, and that's why we're seeing Derrick Jones shutting down his matchups. That's why we're seeing them really giving it to the Thunder, and why they're having a tough time. Let alone the fact that OKC doesn't have much size, which this team definitely has.
And the heliocentric thing is, I think, super important for Doncic in this playoffs, because I think I mentioned this last week as well, too, but Kurt Goldsberry had a book. I think the book's already been released at this point, but it was about the development of the heliocentric offenses in the NBA and kind of how that is modern offense. But then I was kind of thinking about, it was like, okay, yeah, that is definitely where the offenses were at in the Harden era. And again, like Doncic is a byproduct of that. Trae Young's a little bit of a byproduct of that. Like Donovan Mitchell can definitely cross over into that a little bit as well, too, like the super high usage stuff. I mean, Brunson is like had super high usage in this playoff ratings, but again, I think it's a little bit different, especially with the injuries that team has sustained. But I think with the Jokic, Murray influx and just the big man influx in general in the NBA, there is kind of a dynamic forming where offenses are running through their guards, but it's like, okay, we need the big man at the top of the key to play make, and we're going to run the guards off the ball a little bit and run some playmaking around the big man. And we have this other dynamic where if we have an elite guard, we can go to the one-on-one stuff. Like Murray can go score one-on-one if he needs to and potentially do the Doncic type stuff at certain possessions, but they also have this other element. And I think we're like the Knicks were doing that a little bit in one of the games with Hartenstein, where it's like, okay, they're unlocking Brunson even more with the way they're able to occasionally use him off the ball. And that's just not something that Luka was ever good. Like the entire offense and the entire team was geared around this one style of play. And I didn't know if it was the Mavs just like deciding this is the best way to build a team around Luka, or if Luka is like, this is the way I have to play. And I do, I hope that this series is like kind of like a thing where it's like, okay, this is the way to do it. Cause like you're saying, it's super important. They've been at their best almost in this playoffs when Kyrie's been their best player. Like Kyrie's had stretches where he's taken over the offense. And like you're saying, I think that that's a great point where the injury has allowed him to open up that way. Cause I think they needed Doncic to go off the ball a little bit like that. So like you're saying, take it to the next level.
Yeah. I mean, you can't expect to win a playoff game when your second best player, your second closest player to scoring only gets 13. So someone has to go with Shea on the to score these. And you look at the other side, you have Doncic giving you 31, but you also got Derrick Jones with 19, playoff career high, and Kyrie, he did only have 12. But in other games he's going to show up. PJ Washington, he had 10 points, 10 rebounds. I mean, that's huge for this team. So you can kind of see the Mavs meshing together, which shout out to them for being able to bring bring a lot of these pieces in the deadline and really mesh well like this. I mean, able to overcome having twice as many turnovers in this game as OKC. There's a lot of pieces you can look around and you're like, what? How did this result in the Mavs winning? But it's just, you can really see the Mavs figuring out, things that work together, them working together as a team, as a whole unit. And, right now, OKC, they're kind of rattled. And now, they have to go on the road. They've after losing at home, and at home, their home record has been 33-8. So they're definitely a home team, as young teams are. And so now they're supposed to, in a closeout game against Doncic and Kyrie, pull one out on the road. And then so that's pretty tough to believe. And, I was definitely worried about this this OKC team going up against the Mavs, and this is kind of why.
In game 3 was the Kyrie game where he had 8 points in the fourth quarter, 4 from the field, and they beat the Thunder by 4 points. He has been a little up and down in this series compared to the last series. But again, like when he's peak offensively, that's when and that's when Doncic was at his like almost peak, banged up a little bit as well too, where they needed Kyrie to step up a little bit. Doncic only ended up with 3 shots, 2 for 3 in that fourth quarter as well. But I'm not counting the Thunder out for this game. I think that this series still has a chance to go 7. And I think being on the road is definitely a big disadvantage. But again, they haven't been able to stop Shea. So if they're able to shoot the ball well, if the Thunder can, shoot, get back to shooting well, because outside of Isaiah Joe, you've got Jalen Williams. Isaiah Joe's been 38%, but Jalen Williams, 31% from the series. Chet, 25%. Dort, 32%. Wiggins, 30%. He's been logging a bunch of minutes. Shea's been the best one. Shea's at 46% right now. Shea's like actually been selective, but pretty good with the threes. So if those are falling, like the Thunder are right back in it.
Well, and I know Dagnall talked a little bit about, maybe seeing some things in Dallas's defense this last game that they could attack, but not being able to know who your 5th guy for this rotation is, having Isaiah Joe in there, having Josh Giddey in there, kind of going back and forth, even Case and Wallace, just not having defined roles is what I think is going to be this team's downfall. When you look at championship teams or teams that are competing for it, everyone has clear defined roles. Denver has a clear defined role. Everyone knows their place. And so do the Timberwolves, so do even, you look on the other side, so do the Knicks, the Celtics, all the teams that consistently win or, are able to plug games. It's because there's clear roles. And for OKC, yes, you have SGA as a leader, but after that, it's kind of wish-washy. They're still trying to figure out who they are. And, obviously they're way before schedule. They're super young, mind you. This is not necessarily a disappointment, but, it's definitely just showing the areas that they need to grow in, which, for being the youngest team in the league, obviously they'd be growth needed.
And the thing is, they can compete with the best teams in the league. So yeah, they're a young team, but they're also ready now. So they have to be viewed as a team that is ready to win. Like that's kind of how we have to talk about them. But the move might honestly be like as good as Dort has been in this series. There is, again, like the 3 points not going for him. So there have been some minutes where they've had Jalen Williams on Doncic, and that's kind of worked. And that was back when Doncic was not decided he wasn't going to make shots. Now that he's making shots, maybe nobody stops him. But they might have to go with like Jalen Williams. So Shea, Jalen Williams, Chet, Case, and Wallace. I guess you could still play Dort at that point, but just go Case and Wallace. But do you go maybe Isaiah Joe for the 3-pointers? Do you have to go Shea, Williams, Chet, Joe, and Wallace? That's a pretty small lineup, though. You'd end up having to play Chet or Jay Williams at the 4. And the other thing, like you're saying with Derek Jones, like the Mavs are getting special performances out of role players, which is what you need. Like I know we're talking about Bruce Brown, like he is. I'm not saying he's not a good player. Like this is not mean to this. I'm not saying this to disrespect Bruce Brown, but he was like on a little bit of a heater in the playoff run. Like you do need role guys to.
No, he was
ascend a little bit in the playoffs. Like we're seeing it with Derek White right now in the Celtics. Like he's having an all-time playoffs for a role guy on that team. And like Derek Jones, the last couple of games has done that. And they had PJ Washington in the first couple of games do that. So they've always in these games, they've had one of the guys step up as a third option behind Kyrie and behind Luka to fill that scoring need. So I didn't necessarily see that from the Mavs supporting cast where I thought the Thunder supporting cast was going to be a little more consistent. And I still, like in my head, I still trust like Jalen Williams more than Derek Jones Jr. So I still don't want to count him out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Derek Jones Jr. is like,
but again, with the way he's playing, like he's more,
he's more like, Jalen Williams 2 level, on this team, like, if needed. And that's the thing I like about the Mavs. If needed, they can stop playing team ball. Like they can, Kyrie and Luka would be more than happy to say, clear out. I'm carrying us to the land. I don't know if OKC can do that. Shout out to SGA. He's put up those points, but I don't know if he can carry this team past his win. And mind you, he had a great season, but that was the regular season. And I have seen Doncic do it against a good Clippers team multiple times. Kyrie has done it with LeBron. He's shown up moments in the playoffs. So, I'm definitely a resume guy, and that's why I pick OKC. And you might be like, oh, well, I don't think there are listeners, but there's a devil's advocate in my mind being like, oh, why do you have the Timberwolves so much above the Nuggets? Well, because of their blowout wins. I mean, so I think I think that is interesting, an establishment against the younger team. But, with the Timberwolves, they have those blowout wins. Cat's been in the league for a little bit and we kind of know who he is, but I think they do have a little bit more veterans on that team. And so that's why I think
Conley,
it's a different situation, even though it might seem pretty similar. So, Conley's a great one. I mean, Kyle Anderson, so they have some vets in the locker room. And I don't know who on this OKC team is a legitimate veteran voice that can speak up and talk about their playoff experience besides that like 2020 run in the bubble where they lost in the first round.
Gordon Hayward's not rallying the guys in the bench in the huddle. Gordon Hayward doesn't like grab the clipboard from the coaches and go, guys, lock in. This is what you need to do. We're not rotating out to the corner. Gosh. Good enough.
Trusting Gordon Hayward. Anyway, point proven.
What's the over on? Do you think Gordon Hayward has more words or minutes played for this Thunder's team?
That is even a question is the problem.
That's
kind of the problem.
15 minutes for the series so far. 0 for 2 from the field. Yeah, do you think they're like, okay, Gordon Hayward, do you have a little halftime speech you want to give the guys? You've been in big moments before. What big moments has Gordon Hayward been in? Let's take a look at the Gordon Hayward.
There we go. That's the correct question.
Let's take a look at the Gordon Hayward.
Just trash on him out of nowhere, but I mean, he had those runs with the Jazz in his prime.
So he made the playoffs as a rookie with the Jazz, or excuse me, in his second season with the Jazz, got swept by the Spurs, and then he didn't make it again until he was 26. That was the 16-17 season. Made it. That was the only 2 times he made it with the Jazz. Then twice with Boston.
Yeah. So that game 7 against the Clippers round 1, was that against Lob City 2017?
So that would have been, that's the one All-Star season that Gordon Hayward
Lob
had.
City, yeah. So he knocked out Chris Paul, JJ Redick, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan. 2017,
Austin Rivers was on this team.
Exactly. That's a pretty good series win. Put a little respect on his name.
This is like the all-time broadcaster team. It's JJ Redick, Austin Rivers, Jamal Crawford. This team is better in the booth than it was on the court.
He's had literally one playoff series that you can be like, oh, okay, he's maybe the best player. He had 23.7, so pretty much 24, 3 and 7 rebounds. Shot 46% from the field, 45 from 3, 95 from free throw. So, 40, 40, 90, 95, 45. Yeah, 45, 45, 95.
So do you think he uses that performance to inspire this young Thunder team?
I mean, he can talk a little bit. I mean, that game 7 had to be something. It was on the road too, to go into go visit the Clippers. I mean, obviously the joke is always about the Clippers having no fans, but that's a good win though. I mean, there's something, but if I'm the Thunder, it's like, oh, okay, buddy. Let's just say, I mean, not only did he come in the middle of the season on the team, but he's barely playing now that he's there, so.
And Alec Burks was on that Jazz team that beat the Lob City team. And he was in his 5th season.
Shut up.
Alec Burks has been in the league for 12 years.
Dang. Yeah, 2017. I mean, it was a while ago, but it wasn't super long ago.
The 2011 draft, Kyrie Irving was the #1 overall pick. Okay, so a handful of guys. You still got a bunch of guys in the league. Kawhi, Kyrie, Clay, Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris, Vooch, Tristan Thompson's still in the league. So it's still an active draft. I shouldn't say that about Alec Burks. He's a veteran. I don't know if he's officially old yet. When does an NBA player become old? 15 years?
Yeah.
Then he's just old.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think
Is Durant old?
once you've hit like 32, 33, you know.
Oh. So early 30s is old for the NBA. Not like 35. Durant's 35. He's in his 15th season right now.
Yeah.
Has he reached old status? Or is he still just a veteran?
Kevin Durant? Yeah, Kevin Durant's older, yeah. Yeah, he's definitely older.
He's old?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of been old the last 5 years with his, hair balding. He's not a great case scenario, but like, I think 35, like 30, once you start hitting your 30s, you're like, okay, stuff, you start thinking, 31, 32, you're still in your prime. But for most players who aren't superstars, like now, once you start getting 30s, that's when you're kind of checking the clock, making sure you're still getting minutes. You're going to the bench. When did Carmelo start going to the bench? I think that'd be good.
Carmelo's the standard.
AOP.
33. Carmelo went to the Thunder at 33. He made his last All-Star game at 32.
Yeah. So there you go. 33. Yeah, exactly. Now you're starting to get old. 33, yeah. You're not, no one's saying you're a bum. Like, you're still in the league, but
Melo still played 30 plus minutes a game for Houston or for the Thunder that year, 78 games. Then he went to Portland 2 years after that, 32 minutes a game, 58 games, 24 minutes a game for 69 games the next year. And then on the Lakers, his last season, 69 game, 26 minutes a game. So he was still a rotation guy when he was on a team all the way to the end of his career. They still relied on him. And I remember that like both those Blazers and those Lakers teams, there was moments where like they kind of want Melo out there to close the game. Like he's kind of important.
I don't know about the Lakers, but I do remember the Portland.
Well, it wasn't like a great Lakers.
He was 7th and 6th man rating.
That would have been this would have been the team that
he did start 3 games. It started a couple games for the Lakers.
Yeah, he was off the bench.
Was that the year LeBron got hurt?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think LeBron got hurt that year. So yeah,
they didn't make the playoffs this
why
year.
He was getting minutes. Yeah.
LeBron and Davis.
That was the year like, oh, is LeBron actually washed?
This is another team that just like a bunch of great names, but just none of them in the right spots of their career. You've got LeBron, Davis, Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard, DeAndre Jordan, Rajon Rondo. Austin Reeves at that point is still just like a young kid, 7 points a game. Isaiah Thomas played 4 games on this team. Malik Monk, Avery Bradley, Mac McClung, dunk contest champion Mac McClung. Like, this is a crazy locker room.
Contest, Mac McClung.
This is one of the great locker rooms if all these guys are together. DJ Augustine, Kent Bazemore.
Are you talking about the 2022 Lakers right now? Or
the 2022 Lakers, yeah. Underrated locker room.
The locker room that couldn't get to the playoffs?
We're going to do, that'll be a summer segment we'll do. We'll do just like the most random teams that nobody remembers.
Oh my gosh.
What was it? Just like the team? Because there's like an old Clippers team that had like Bill Walton and Bob McAdoo and like all these Hall of Fame guys. And just like Bill Walton was unfortunately not at a productive point in his career at that point. And I think McAdoo, like they just didn't have any of the guys at their peak. So it was like, okay. People will
forget LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah, that's another guy. Perfect example.
Yeah. I mean, I think everything gets lost in Everything gets lost in Portland.
They had
Like
Bill
Scoot
Walton.
Henderson's season. Thank God.
Oh yeah, they had Bill Walton, Terry Cummings, and Tom Chambers, and they won 25 games.
Shout out.
Lionel Hollins, Craig Hodges.
Well, I usually consider great locker rooms ones that win. So
Then the
yeah,
next year they got Ricky
I don't
Pierce. They had
know.
Ricky Pierce, Norm Nixon. Won 30 games the next year. I think Walton only played in like 80 games total for the Clippers
Yeah.
over 3 years. Missed 2 years entirely with an injury. I'm doing a
Jeez.
summer segment right now. I don't want to step on it.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. Anyway, moving to the locker rooms that are still playing. The Knicks down right now. The last series left to talk about. Knicks down by 8 right now on the road. I think the Pacers are gonna close this one out.
Make it
Push
11.
this to 7.
Halliburton just hit a 3.
Yeah.
10
So
minutes in the
double
third, though.
digit
It's
lead.
still early as the time we're recording this.
Is Mitchell Robinson still out?
Yeah, I think all the injured guys are still out.
Yeah. Okay, so they still have for their bench, they have Precious Achua and Alec Burke. So they're playing 7 players right now. I just don't see this team, a team with Precious Achua as your 6th man off the bench, being serious contenders to beat the Celtics. Like I'm just saying,
okay, I might have to walk it back, but I'm looking at this lineup. Like literally,
it gets tough. Like Miles McBride,
So-
Miles McBride is not doing anything against Jaylen Brown. Like
he's in their
Derek
starting
White,
lineup. Miles McBride is
yeah,
17 tonight.
exactly.
7 for 9. He's
He's
carrying.
playing the Pacers. The Pacers have 0 defense. Like it's well known around the league that they couldn't stop the stopped car. Like this team, the Pacers, they're just a horrible defense. And I'm just saying, like Hartenstein, shout out for him for getting the G League MVP, but
Hartenstein was the G League MVP?
I think so. I remember seeing that a while ago.
Oh. That makes me want to go back and look at G League MVPs. And see,
yeah, me too.
See what they got going on. But on Bleacher Report right now, so I'm looking at the game, but I got the box score pulled up on Bleacher Report as well.
Oh, he was the Finals MVP 2019.
G League Finals MVP.
Yeah, I don't know.
What
Maybe
team?
more important. I mean, for G League.
For the Knicks team,
I'm looking at his G League. He averaged 15 and 10.
The defense was probably good for him too. We know he hustles.
Yeah, I mean,
two-way guy.
If you're G League MVP, you're playing great. Wow, average 2019, 2020, he averaged 25. 15 and 4 assists.
Whoa.
He was shooting 58% from the field. Yeah, there's a reason he got called up. Like he was playing for the Vipers.
Because he's Anthony Davis in the G League team.
Rio Grande Vipers.
Ooh, who's Rio Grande? Who's the Vegas team?
I don't know.
What does their logo look
I'm
like?
not really following the G League. But yeah, this team, I mean, again, like DiVincenzo, I'll give him respect. He is a playoff starter. But Miles McBride and Hartenstein, being your part of your starting 5 against a team that has Derek White, Drew Holiday, Tatum, Brown, and X. Like they have Horford. They have Sam Hauser? They have Cornette. Heck, what's his face? Porzingis probably will be back maybe game 3. I mean, I could see him very well sitting out if they're up 2-0, but we'll see. I just think that the Celtics they'll continue rolling, and I honestly think it will be a disappointment if the Celtics allow the Knicks to win more than 1 game.
Definitely, if all these guys are hurt,
Disappointment.
I definitely think that would I could see that.
No OG, no Julius Randle. Shake Milton is on the team. Bojan Bogdanovic, their injured team I put more
I was
faith
gonna
in a
ask you about
starting
this.
five.
I was gonna ask.
Yeah, I put more faith in a starting five of Shake Milton, OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Mitchell Robinson as a starting five. Like, no disrespect to Jalen Brunson, but
That team wouldn't beat Brunson and DiVincenzo and Josh Hart in an actual game, but it is close.
I think it would.
Their injured starting
I think
lineup is pretty good. But
OG on Jalen Brunson? Come on now.
They're injured options right now for the bench, so that if they have foul trouble and they need to go somewhere else. Diakite?
Yeah, I see him. DeQuan Jeffries?
DeQuan Jeffries? Like
I'm sorry, if you're
Jericho Sims, they just won't even play.
DeQuan. I don't know why they hate Jericho Sims so much. Texas guy, give him some minutes.
I know, isn't he not just cheaper Jared Allen?
I know. At least something. Tibbs does too much. I'm just saying, if we see DeQuan Jeffries out there, wrap it up.
DeQuan Jeffries has played a total of 55 minutes the last 5 years.
Oh my gosh. Hey, look, he made it to the league. Shout out to him. He's not stuck in the G League, so it's a success, right?
He played a couple of
He's
years
probably
before
going to be
that.
on some YouTube video. He's going to be on some YouTube video 5 years from now. NBA star plays against YouTuber. Those it's like,
Yeah.
oh, he played like